Okay, so you know how we're always trying to figure out this whole relationship thing, like friendships and all the stuff going on with social media? Well, for this deep dive, we're actually going to do a deep dive on all that.
Yeah?
All the dynamics of relationships, friendships between genders, uh, keeping love alive, navigating those rough patches, how social media plays into it all, and even some fun ways to plan those, special moments.
Hmm.
So no matter what your relationship situation looks like right now, whether you're single or coupled up or somewhere in between, um, I think there's going to be some really interesting stuff for you to think about today.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe we should just jump right in with the age-old question.
Okay.
Can men and women actually just be friends?
Oh, that is the question, isn't it?
No.
It always seems to be lurking there, like in the background
Yeah.
of like so many relationships. Like there's this assumption that a close friendship between a guy and a girl must mean there's something romantic going on.
Right.
And, it's interesting to think about like, where does that even come from? Some people say it's like evolutionary biology, that we're wired to see those opposite sex relationships in a certain way,
Hmm.
but also like our culture, social conditioning,
Yeah.
it definitely plays a role in how we view male-female friendships.
Totally. Like you see it happen all the time.
Oh, yeah,
How many times have you seen a partner get all weird about their significant other having a close friend of the opposite sex?
exactly.
Like, even if there's total trust, there's this cultural thing that says those friendships are, like, inherently risky.
Yeah, and it can be tricky for sure. But what we're seeing in a lot of these perspectives is that the way through that is trust and clear communication.
Right. Like, that's the foundation.
Really is. And it sounds simple, but actually doing it,
Yeah.
that can be tough, especially when a partner is expressing discomfort about it. It's about listening to them, really understanding their point of view, instead of getting defensive.
Yeah, totally. It's not about saying, like, hey, you have to end this friendship or else. It's about having those open conversations about boundaries and mutual respect and figuring out what makes everyone feel secure.
Exactly. It's about understanding where they're coming from, even if you don't feel the same way. Like having empathy is huge.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so speaking of things that can make relationship complicated, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Social media.
Oh, yeah. Social media definitely has changed things.
It feels like it's rewritten the whole playbook when it comes to love and friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like we're constantly seeing these filtered versions of other people's lives.
Yeah, and it's not always the full picture. What's interesting is how these platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they tend to showcase like this perfect, ideal version of being a couple.
Right. The grand gestures, the fancy vacations, all the romantic stuff. It's like a highlight reel.
Exactly. And it's easy to get caught up in comparing your own relationship to that.
Oh, absolutely. You're scrolling through your feed and seeing these seemingly flawless relationships, and you start to wonder, like, why isn't mine like that?
Yeah. One example that really stood out was like someone seeing all these posts about extravagant gifts and surprise trips, and then they start expecting those things from their own partner.
Right.
But the problem is they might be missing out on those smaller but equally important ways their partner is already showing love. Like maybe their partner is always there for them emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Or does all these little acts of service. Those things might not be as flashy as a big vacation,
Right.
but they're still incredibly meaningful.
So what can you do about it?
Well, the advice we kept seeing was to really make a conscious effort to separate that online world from your real life.
Like to remember that social media isn't always real.
Right. Focus on what makes your relationship special
Right.
and what works for you and your partner. And don't worry so much about what everyone else is doing online.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know this might sound crazy, but have you ever thought about like taking a break from social media altogether?
Oh, yeah. Taking a break can be really helpful.
Yeah.
When you're not bombarded with all those perfect images, you can actually appreciate the real moments happening in your own relationship.
Exactly. It's about being present.
Yeah.
Okay, so even in the best relationships, we all know that disagreements are going to happen. It's just part of being human. So how can we handle those tough moments in a way that actually makes our relationships stronger?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes people make during arguments is they stop listening.
Oh, yeah.
You get so focused on making your own point that you stop trying to understand what the other person is saying.
Yeah, it's like you're just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then things can really escalate quickly. Another thing to watch out for is bringing up old issues, things that were supposedly resolved.
Yeah, like keeping score.
Right. And that just makes it impossible to actually move forward.
Totally. It's like, wait, we were talking about this now. Why are you bringing up what happened 6 months ago?
Exactly. It just derails the whole conversation.
So what about when trust becomes an issue? Like if a partner is expressing insecurity?
The advice we saw over and over was to not get angry or defensive.
Yeah.
Instead, try to really understand where those insecurities are coming from and communicate openly and with empathy. You know, what can you do to reassure them and help them feel more secure?
That takes a lot of patience and understanding, for sure. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. How do you keep that spark alive in a long-term relationship? Like when you've been together for a while and things start to feel a little routine?
Well, one thing that came up a lot was the importance of those small but consistent acts of love and thoughtfulness.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't have to be some grand gesture every day,
Right.
but those little things, a compliment, a surprise, just making time for each other.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
It's so easy to slip into that comfortable routine and forget to put in the same effort you did at the beginning.
That's true. But you know, it's important to keep dating your partner,
Hmm.
even when you've been together for a long time.
I like that.
And remember how you treated them at the start of the relationship.
Yeah.
Keep that up. Another great suggestion was to try new things together.
Yeah.
You know, step outside your comfort zone, go on an adventure, take a class.
Mm.
It could be anything, really. Just something new and exciting gives you something to talk about and helps you see each other in a new light.
I love that. Now, speaking of real-life relationships, the material we looked at included this really interesting story about a couple named Rohan and Aisha.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually started out as friends in college and eventually became a couple.
That sounds like a great foundation.
Yeah. But of course, life always throws some curveballs.
Yeah.
So Rohan had to move for work, and the distance started to put a strain on their relationship.
Makes sense.
Aisha felt neglected even though Rohan was just trying to focus on his career. And this is where things got really interesting because they started having all these conflicts about their digital communication.
Oh, wow.
You know, like WhatsApp replies, social media interactions, late night texts. Aisha was interpreting these delays as a sign that Rohan didn't care.
Ah.
And Roman felt pressured to be available all the time.
Yeah, it's hard when you're trying to balance everything.
It is. But the great thing about their story is how they worked through it.
Oh, good.
They actually talked openly and honestly about their feelings. Aisha realized that she needed to adjust her expectations a little bit. And Rohan made a conscious effort to connect with her more regularly, even with the distance.
That's great.
And guess what? They ended up getting married.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's a really good reminder that lasting love isn't about perfect online personas or grand romantic gestures.
Right.
It's about patience, effort, understanding each other's needs and communication styles,
Yeah.
and having realistic expectations instead of chasing some online ideal.
Absolutely. Now, on a more practical note, I know we talked about surprises earlier.
Yeah.
And the material we looked at actually had some really simple but thoughtful ideas for making your partner feel special.
Okay, I like this.
You know, without having to spend a ton of money or plan something crazy elaborate,
Yeah, what kind of stuff?
like leaving a cute note in their lunch bag or briefcase, planning a movie night at home,
Mm.
sending a sweet voice message during the day,
Hmm?
or even just cooking their favorite meal.
Oh, I love that. It really is the little things sometimes.
It really is. You know, another area where social media has kind of set the bar a little too high is proposals.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it.
Like, there's this pressure to have this huge Instagram-worthy production.
It's like you need a flash mob and a diamond the size of a golf ball.
Right. But what we saw in the material is that the most meaningful proposals are the ones that are personal and come from the heart.
Yeah, totally.
You know, if your partner is someone who values intimacy, a private, sincere proposal will mean so much more than a big public spectacle.
For sure. It's about knowing your partner and what they would truly appreciate. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's go back to that big question.
Okay.
What are the key ingredients for a strong and lasting relationship? The material we explored actually highlighted some really valuable principles.
Yeah, one that really resonated with me was honesty with kindness.
Okay.
It's about being truthful with your partner,
Mm.
even when it's hard, but doing it in a way that's respectful and considerate of their feelings.
Yeah, you have to find that balance between being direct and being compassionate.
Exactly. And another important takeaway was that love isn't just a feeling,
Mm.
it's a choice.
Oh, I like that.
Something you have to actively work on every day.
Yeah.
You know, putting in the effort, being intentional, choosing to love your partner.
That's so important. So for everyone listening, maybe take a minute to think about how social media is affecting your own relationships. And maybe think of one small act of kindness you can do for someone you care about today. It's those real-world connections and those small gestures that really matter.
Hmm.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We wish you all the best in navigating the beautiful and sometimes messy world of relationships.